When we think of collisions involving aviation disasters, it's hard to imagine anything worse than a collision involving two aircraft. After all, some of the deadliest aviation disasters involved such scenario. The story behind this video, however, is that of an airplane collision involving three planes, a disaster which occurred in Guangzhou, China in October of 1990. How this all transpired came down to the plot of one man. The city of Xiamen lays on the east coast of China, across the strait from neighboring Taiwan. Like many cities across China, in 1990 it was beginning to see the start of massive growth, a trend across the country. As manufacturing all over the world had been outsourced to China, Chinese people were beginning to make a bit more money. This, in turn, had a positive knock-on effect on China's aviation sector as more people began taking to the skies. As private enterprises began to blossom in the country, Chinese airlines too began springing up. One such airline was Xiamen Airlines, based out of the city of the same name. For the longest time, all air travel in China was run by the Civil Aviation Administration of China, or CAAC for short. It held a monopoly in the country's aviation industry, much like how Aeroflot did in the Soviet Union. The CAAC airline was broken up in the late 1980s, giving way for the rise of new air carriers. Xiamen Airlines inherited a number of planes from this old carrier. One of those planes was registered as Bravo 2510, a Boeing 737-200 that first flew in 1984. Even though it was flying for a new airline, it was still painted in the old livery of CAAC by the time of the incident. On the morning of October 2, 1990, it was to be flown from Xiamen to Guangzhou flying a Xiamen Airlines Flight 8301. 93 passengers turned up for the plane that morning, which left the airport at 6:57 in the morning. The names of the flight crews involved in this incident are seemingly difficult to track down. What we do know is that the captain of this flight was named as Senlong Yu. He was the one piloting the plane with 102 occupants on board. At first, all seemed well with the flight as it continued to climb up to its cruising altitude. In the cabin, a man was sat in row 16. At around 7:20, he arose from his seat and proceeded to the front of the plane. The man dressed in a black suit was 21-year-old Jiang Shaofeng from Hunan province. He lived and worked in Changsha as a purchasing agent. He did have previous history with the police and was apparently wanted for defrauding the company he worked for of 17,000 yuan, roughly around $3,600 in 1990. He boarded the plane with a black briefcase, which he left behind in his seat. Approaching the flight deck door, he was seen holding a plastic black box in one hand and roses in the other. According to surviving eyewitnesses, he pushed his way past a flight attendant on his way to the flight deck. The door itself was actually unlocked, some sources indicating that one member of the crew apparently even let him in, as they assumed the roses he was holding was somehow a gift for the pilots, perhaps thinking it was in relation to the Chinese Moon Festival, which takes place in the autumn. Once inside the flight deck, he announced to the pilots that explosives were strapped to his body and that he was hijacking the plane. It was then that his plot was revealed. Jiang Shaofeng wanted to escape China and seek political asylum in Taiwan. He threatened the pilots that he would blow up the plane if they did not turn the plane around for Taiwan. Passengers sat in the front rows of the cabin apparently began to panic as they could see and/or hear the dialogue unfolding in the cockpit. The hijacker ordered everyone in the cockpit, aside from himself and Captain Senlong Yu, out of the cockpit. Flight attendants then announced the hijacking to the passengers. It was found out by Chinese aviation authorities that the plane was hijacked. How they found this out specifically is unclear. We don't know if there was an immediate radio communication from the hijacker himself or the pilot. But pilots can also let air traffic control know of unlawful interference by programming a specific code into the transponder, squawk code 7500. This can let the ground know of a hijacking without the need to actually say it over the radio. The plane was apparently allowed to land at any airport in China or abroad. The captain suggested a compromise with the hijacker to land in Hong Kong instead. At the time, Hong Kong was a British colony out of reach of Chinese jurisdiction. The hijacker was much displeased about this compromise and still threatened to blow up the plane if they landed in Hong Kong. What happened next was the plane was then directed over Guangdong province in the general direction of its original flight plan, where it circled over the airport in Foshan, the neighboring city to the Guangzhou metropolis. The plan for the hijacker now was to refuel and then fly to Taiwan. After circling several times, the plane then flew over the airport in Guangzhou. The aircraft circled at an altitude of just 300 meters. It should now be noted that Guangzhou's Baiyun Airport in 1990 is not the same airport that exists there today. The new Baiyun Airport opened following this airport's closure in 2004. The time was now just after 8:30 in the morning. After circling for some time, it was noted to air traffic control that fuel was beginning to run low. The captain did request again to land in Hong Kong, but the hijacker was adamant and refused to go to Hong Kong, again saying that he would blow up the plane if that attempt was made. Instead, a landing attempt was made at Guangzhou at 9:04. Sources would be somewhat conflicting on the surface level about how the following events unfolded. Looking deeper into Chinese sources, we can ascertain that the plane approached from the north. Just before the plane touched down on the runway, the hijacker Jiang Xiaofeng would violently begin attacking the captain in an attempt to take control of the plane himself. As a result of this, the plane made a hard landing on the ground. It would seem that control of the plane was lost, as it would subsequently swerve off of the runway while traveling at considerable speed. Let's pause and just take in what had just happened. The hijacker attacked the pilot while the plane was still on the runway, the same plane he would assumedly want refueled and taken to Taiwan. We need to pause and also understand that the airport was still active. Although note that given the unfolding crisis, arrivals and departures had been temporarily suspended. China Southwest Airlines Flight 4305 had just landed at Guangzhou after a flight from Chengdu and had been parked on the apron away from the runway. The plane was a Boeing 707. All the passengers had disembarked and even some of the crew members had already left the plane. By this time, there was just one person left on board the plane, one of the pilots. The hijacked Boeing 737's right wing sliced through the nose section of the Boeing 707, injuring the pilot inside. Though the 707 would erupt into flames following this collision, the injured pilot would recover and survive. This was the first collision. The second would be far more catastrophic. There was also an outbound plane taxiing for departure. China Southern Airlines Flight 3523, a Boeing 757, was preparing for a flight to Shanghai. It had been held up on the ground after the airport temporarily closed due to the crisis. On board the plane were 122 passengers and crew. The flight was being commanded by Captain Zhengshan Wu. He had received word from air traffic control that he could not proceed to takeoff at that moment. Instead, the plane was parked facing north. The hijacked Xiamen Airlines flight did attempt to take off again, even though the plane was well off of the runway. Whether this was the effort of the hijacker or the captain is unknown. The 737 had insufficient lift to take off, and subsequently collided with the 757, resulting in the two planes exploding, destroying them both in the process. The disaster killed 82 people on board the 737, leaving 20 survivors, and killed 46 on the 757 with 76 survivors, totaling 128 deaths. Hijacker Jiang Xiaofeng was among the dead. Following the crash, Chinese Premier Li Peng traveled to Guangzhou to survey the disaster scene. When the body of the hijacker was found, it was concluded that he actually had no explosives in his possession. It was never explained as to why Captain Sen Long-yu didn't concede to the hijacker's demand and fly to Taiwan when instructed. Even the investigation report that was apparently published didn't make any note of this according to sources. The management at Guangzhou Airport admitted that their procedures for dealing with an instance such as this were inadequate, and they apparently fired some of the staff at the airport as a result of the disaster. As a result of the possibility of further security risks, new procedures were developed in China to help deal with hijacking scenarios. Hijackings have happened since then all across the world and with varying degrees of devastation. Largely as a response to the 9/11 attacks, security at airports everywhere has been tightened further than it already was. Hijackings are now far less frequent and rarely result in disaster. A big thank you to my patrons for the amazing support on the channel. Their names are scrolling on the screen right now. If you see your name here, a big thank you to you. If you want to have your name featured here or you want to get early access to all new videos 2 days before they go out publicly, consider joining the Disaster Breakdown Patreon. The link to that will be in the pinned comment below. I just want to say that next week is a pretty special week for Disaster Breakdown. There will be 2 videos coming out this coming week, with the extra video coming this Tuesday. The other video will be at the usual time on the Saturday. It's special because this video will be about a rail disaster, a first for the channel, and it is shaping up to be the best video I think I've ever made. We're putting it out there to see how it will do, and if people want to see more videos like it, then great, we'll make more. It also has a bit of a local connection to myself, so I cannot wait to share this with you in just a few days. Be sure to be subscribed so you don't miss it. And that is where I'm going to sign off on this video. If you want to follow my personal Twitter page, you can find that in this video's description. Have a great weekend, and I will see you on Tuesday. Goodbye!